You were not born with calmness. In fact, from the moment you were born, you entered a chaotic world where everything influences your mind, sounds, words, people's reactions, unexpected events that you can't predict. Your nervous system was not trained to face all of this calmly, and none of us, no matter our potential or abilities, were born with perfect emotional control. I want you to understand that calmness is not something you're granted from birth. It is not an innate quality, but a skill that can be trained and perfected. This might surprise you, but the truth is that the ability to stay calm when faced with challenges, when everything around you is being disrupted, is a manifestation of inner discipline. And this discipline you can build day by day. You don't have to wait for everything to stabilize, for the moment you feel ready. In fact, calmness is built in moments of chaos, in those situations when you feel like you can barely handle it. From the moment you step into this world, everything around you can throw you off balance. Every change, a criticism, or even a contemptuous glance can make you angry, lose control. And have you ever noticed this? You react without thinking, act without control, and then realize you've lost energy, relationships, and even opportunities just because of an unnecessary reaction. And I know you've experienced that feeling. But calmness is not about ignoring what's happening around you. It is not about closing your eyes and pretending nothing is happening. Calmness is the ability to stand firm even when the storm is raging. It is the ability to face difficulties without allowing your mind to be swept away. You must understand that calmness is not something you can achieve instantly. You won't be able to find calmness without a strong inner control system. Look at those you consider the most successful in life. They are not people who never feel insecure, never get angry or anxious. No, they have emotions just like you, but the difference is that they don't let those emotions control their actions. They know how to handle those emotions calmly without letting them affect their decisions and actions. You can see them standing firm, not falling, not being swept away by the waves of emotions, and that is true strength. I want you to understand that when you let emotions control you, you lose control. This not only makes you weak, but it also makes you a victim of your own reactions. You cannot let a word, a small criticism, or an unexpected event destabilize you. You cannot let those little things define your life. This world is full of unpredictable events, but you can learn to face them without letting yourself be pulled into them. Take a look at the big decisions in your life. When you make a hasty decision, when you react immediately without thinking carefully, you may realize that the decision is not really what you wanted. But if you can stay calm, stop in that moment to think thoroughly, you'll realize that you can make a better, more accurate decision with fewer emotions. You can gain control, and that's what matters. Calmness is an intentional response. You can choose not to react impulsively, not to get caught up in the chaos around you. Even when you feel like the world is falling apart, you can remind yourself of one thing: I can choose how I react. And this is the power you can build. You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect to act calmly. You can build calmness right in the most difficult situations, when every fiber of your body wants to react in its natural way. The most successful people in life are not those who never feel frustrated, angry, or anxious. They are simply those who know how to master those emotions. When you teach your mind to stay calm, you not only learn to respond accurately, but also learn to master yourself. You are not a victim of the outside world. You are the one who decides how to react to it. True calmness is a part of inner discipline. If you can train yourself to stop and think before reacting, you will be able to control your emotions, and from there you will be able to control your life. That is the difference between successful people and those who never truly mature. If you can't control your emotions, you will never be able to control your life. And finally, you must understand that calmness is not something you will have immediately. It is a process, a journey that requires patience, step by step. It is an intentional choice, and I assure you that when you start training calmness in difficult situations, you will find that you can face any challenge life throws at you without being defeated. Calmness is not something you seek when everything is stable. Calmness is something you build right in those moments when you feel like you can't stand strong. Calmness is not a personality trait. This might surprise you, but it's the truth. People often think that calmness is a quality someone must have from birth. They believe that if you're not calm, you're lacking something within yourself. But the reality is completely different. Calmness is a skill, not an innate characteristic. You weren't born knowing how to control your emotions. You are not naturally patient. Nor are you someone who can always face challenges without emotions taking over. Calmness is not a trait of someone who never has strong emotions. It's the ability to control them. I've seen many people, even the most successful ones, who thought they couldn't be calm. But in reality, they hadn't learned to master their emotions. They simply didn't realize that they could learn this, like any other skill in life. If you don't master your emotions, they will sweep you away. You'll lose control of your life because emotions will control you. Emotions are not bad things. No one can live without emotions. In fact, emotions are an important part of the human experience. But what matters is that you know how to adjust and control your emotions rather than letting them control you. If you let your emotions dominate, you won't be able to make sound decisions. The decisions you make when angry or anxious are often not the best ones. Calmness is not something you can have instantly. It's a process, a journey that you must patiently go through. If you want calmness in stressful situations, you must practice it. Create a habit of responding calmly in difficult moments. This doesn't come from avoiding challenges. It comes from how you face them calmly. I can tell you that when you learn to stay calm in stressful situations, you'll realize that you won't be torn apart by your emotions anymore. You'll become someone who can control yourself in any situation. If you don't have calmness, you'll react impulsively and make mistakes. You won't be able to see the situation clearly, and your emotions will overwhelm you and lead you. Think about times when you've lost your calm. You might recall those moments when you acted hastily, said things you didn't really mean, just because your emotions were too strong, and then you regretted what you did. But you can avoid that if you learn to stay calm. Calmness is not about avoiding strong emotions. You will always feel anger, frustration, or anxiety in certain situations. But you can learn to face them without letting them control you. If you can stay calm in stressful situations, you'll be able to master the situation. You won't be swept away by emotions, but will use them to make accurate, thoughtful decisions. Calmness is not about not having emotions. It's about not letting emotions dominate your actions. A calm person is not someone who never feels anger, anxiety, or frustration. That's someone who knows how to handle their emotions, not letting them control their actions. Calmness is not about not feeling strong emotions. It's about knowing how to adjust those emotions and act purposefully. If you don't know how to master your emotions, you will become a slave to them. You'll react impulsively, be overwhelmed by your emotions, and lose control. But when you learn to stay calm, you'll see yourself becoming stronger. You won't be swept up in stressful situations, but you'll face them calmly and wisely. You won't let emotions lead your life. Calmness is a learning process, a process you must be patient and persistent with. But I assure you, when you start training yourself, you'll notice a significant change. You won't be swept away by emotions anymore. You'll become someone who can face any challenge without losing control, and that's real strength. When you can stay calm in every situation, you'll realize you don't need to prove anything. Calmness is your power. So how do you train calmness? You start with yourself, with the smallest situations in daily life. Don't wait until things get worse to start practicing. It's in those small moments when you feel anger or anxiety that you can stop, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this worth losing my calm for? Remind yourself that you have the right to choose how you react. You are not a slave to your emotions. You can master them. When you start training calmness, you'll realize that you're no longer influenced by external factors. You won't let words, looks, or sudden changes throw you off balance. You'll face every challenge with steadiness and calmness, and that will make all the difference in your life. Calmness is not about avoiding stressful situations. It's about how you face those situations without letting them knock you down. You don't need to change the whole world to be calm. You just need to change how you react to the world. Calmness is inner strength, and it's a strength you can build every day. So, are you ready to become someone who can stay calm in every situation? Start training your calmness today, because when you master calmness, you will master your life. Other people do not make you lose your calm. Have you ever thought about this? Surely, In moments of anger, you feel like someone else has sparked your loss of control. Maybe it was someone's words or actions that made you lose your calm. But the truth is, others cannot make you lose your calm unless you allow them to. Your emotions are not the product of external things, but the product of how you react to them. You have the power to control your reactions, and that is true strength. Stop and think about this. Every time you lose your calm, you are giving control to someone else. A criticism, an annoying comment, or an action you don't like can make you angry, anxious, or disappointed. But the truth is, you are allowing external factors to control your emotions. You can't change other people's actions, but you can change how you react to them. Everything outside of you is just an influence. They do not have the power to make you lose your calm unless you allow it. People may say hurtful things, do things that upset you, but the fact that you let them make you lose control is entirely your decision. When you realize that you are the one who decides your reactions, you will begin to see that your emotions are no longer influenced by others. Anger, disappointment, or anxiety only occur when you let them happen. When you react impulsively, without pausing to think, when you let emotions control your actions, you will lose control. But when you start training yourself to recognize those emotions and face them calmly, you'll see yourself becoming much stronger. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel angry. No one can live without emotions. Emotions like anger, frustration, and anxiety are a natural part of life. But the difference between someone who can control themselves and someone who cannot is the ability to respond to those emotions. You don't need to act emotionless, but you must learn not to let emotions control you. Take a simple example. When someone criticizes you, your natural reaction might be to feel insulted, hurt, or even angry. But if you understand that those criticisms do not define your worth, you won't get caught up in those negative emotions. You can listen to the feedback calmly and use it to improve, instead of letting it make you lose your calm. Others cannot hurt you unless you allow them to. Anyone can make you lose your calm if you allow them. If you let others decide your emotions, you are giving them control. But if you stand firm and recognize that your emotions are yours and you have the power to control them, you will never lose your calm. True strength comes from the ability to master yourself, not from controlling others. This doesn't mean you have to avoid strong emotions. Emotions are part of being human, but what's important is that you understand those emotions don't have the power to decide your actions. Emotions are just the body's natural reaction, but you can learn not to let them control every decision. You can feel angry, but you don't have to react immediately. You can feel disappointed, but you don't have to let it dominate your mind and action. The key to not letting others make you lose your calm is the ability to pause and think before reacting. When you feel angry or anxious, instead of reacting right away, take a moment to stop, breathe, and ask yourself, is this really important? How do I want to react? This is the difference between being swept up by emotions and mastering your emotions. If you can control the time between emotions and reactions, you will master your life. I'm not saying that you will always do this immediately. Change doesn't happen overnight. But if you start practicing in small situations in your life, you will see a noticeable change. When you start controlling how you react, you'll see that your emotions no longer control your life. You will become someone who can face any challenge without losing control. The most successful people are those who can control their emotions. They are not the ones who never feel anger or anxiety. They are simply the ones who know how to face those emotions without letting them affect their actions. And that's what makes the biggest difference. When you master your emotions, you will never let others make you lose your calm. You will become the one who decides your reactions, not anyone else. I want you to understand that calmness comes from within you. It does not depend on what others do. If you understand that you have the power to control your reactions, you will never let anyone else decide your emotions. You will become proactive in your life, not reactive. So where do you start? Start by recognizing your emotions. Every time you feel angry or disappointed, instead of reacting immediately, pause for a moment. Take some time to think about why you feel this way, and if there's another way to react without losing your calm. This is not about avoiding emotions, but about mastering your emotions. When you learn to master your emotions, you will master your life. Remember, no one can make you lose your calm unless you allow it. You are the one who decides your emotions. When you realize this, you will see that nothing and no one can make you lose your calm. You will become the one who controls every situation in your life, not the one swept up in impulsive emotional reactions. Calmness is an intentional choice. It is not something that happens naturally or by chance. You cannot wait for everything to be calm before you can remain calm. This is a common misunderstanding that many people have. Calmness is not the result of the world around you becoming perfect. In fact, calmness is the result of your decision to remain steady even when the world is chaotic. It is a deliberate action, a clear decision that you must make even in difficult situations. When you face challenges, when uncontrollable things begin to happen, you may feel anger, anxiety, or tension. These are natural feelings. No one can avoid these emotions. But the difference between someone who can control themselves and someone who lets emotions dominate is this choice. You can choose not to react immediately. You can choose to take a moment, to pause, observe, and evaluate the situation before reacting. This not only brings calmness, but also helps you make wiser decisions. Calmness is not something you can have right away. It is not something you can learn in one day. It is a choice that you must practice consistently, day by day. Just like when you learn a new skill, you won't become proficient immediately. But if you persist in practicing, you will see significant progress. And with each practice, you will get closer to mastering your emotions and staying calm in every situation. Imagine you are facing a stressful situation, perhaps an important meeting, a debate, or an emergency. Everything is happening quickly, people are talking, reacting, and you may feel yourself getting swept up in the whirlwind. This is when you must make a choice. You can choose to react emotionally, perhaps with anger or anxiety, or you can decide to stop, take a deep breath, and observe the situation objectively. This is the intentional choice, and that is true power. Certainly there will be times when you feel pressured and unable to control your emotions. But I assure you that every time you choose calmness, you are creating a habit, an intentional reflex. And when you do this for long enough, you will realize that you are no longer affected by the chaos around you. You will be able to face challenges without losing control, without letting emotions dominate. There is a simple truth that many people don't realize. You cannot change the things that happen in life. You cannot control every situation, every person, or every event. But you can control how you react to them. That is true power. And calmness comes from understanding that you can control yourself in every circumstance. You can choose how to face difficulties without letting them defeat you. This doesn't mean you have to become a cold, emotionless person. No, I'm not saying you must reject the strong emotions you have. Emotions are a natural part of being human. But you must realize that emotions are not what will decide your actions. You can feel anxious, but you don't need to act in that anxiety. You can feel angry, but you don't need to let that anger guide you. And that is where calmness begins. Calmness is an intentional choice. It starts with you realizing that you have the right to choose how to react to the world. You can stop for a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, is this really important? How do I want to react? This question not only helps you master your emotions, but also helps you make better decisions, not an impulsive reaction, but a deliberate, thoughtful, and effective choice. One of the most important elements of staying calm is the ability to pause and assess. When you pause before acting, you allow yourself not only to be aware of the situation, but also to respond intelligently. You are not a victim of your emotions. You are the one who decides how you will react. And when you master calmness, you master your life. Calmness is not about avoiding all strong emotions. You will still feel anger, anxiety, or disappointment in certain moments, but you will learn how to face those emotions without letting them take control of you. You will not let those emotions dictate your actions. You will choose your response, and when you do that, you will notice you no longer get swept up by unnecessary emotions. Another important thing I want you to understand is that calmness is a choice, and it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. You won't always stay calm. There will be times you fail. But what matters is that you realize that every time you fail, you will learn something new. And when you practice calmness deliberately, you will become stronger and better at controlling your emotions. And eventually, you will see that you are no longer pushed by emotions that you once thought were uncontrollable. Calmness is a choice you can make today. You don't need to wait until everything is stable to begin. You can start right now in small situations in everyday life. When you face an unexpected change, when you feel anxious, when you feel angry, you can choose not to react immediately. You can stop for a moment, think, and decide to react calmly. When you start making this choice, you will notice that you become much stronger. You will no longer let emotions control you. You will control your actions, and from that, you will feel more confident in your abilities. Calmness is inner strength, and this strength will help you face every challenge in life without losing control. You will become the one who masters your life, not the one life masters. Start choosing calmness today. Every time you face difficulty, remember that you have the right to choose how to react, and when you master calmness, you will master your life. Difficult situations do not make you lose control. That's something most people don't realize. They often think that when facing challenges or stressful situations, they won't be able to stay calm, but in reality, these situations are just opportunities for you to prove that you can master yourself. It's not because you don't face difficulties, but because you know how to confront them without being swept into chaos. Life is full of challenges. In work, in relationships, in important decisions, difficulties are always present. However, what matters is not how you face the difficulties, but how you react to them. When you let the situation decide your emotions and actions, you are allowing external circumstances to control your life. You're losing before you even begin. But if you understand that difficulties are not something to fear or avoid, but rather an opportunity to affirm yourself, you'll find life much lighter. In fact, every time you encounter a difficult situation, you can choose to react intentionally. You don't have to lose control. You can choose to pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this really important? How can I react to solve this issue effectively? This question will help you avoid being swept up by emotions and make wiser decisions. In fact, in many cases, the best decisions are made when you stay calm and don't let emotions take control. One of the reasons we tend to lose control in difficult situations is that we often have a tendency to react immediately. We feel the urge to do something right away, to solve the problem immediately, to express our emotions immediately. But in reality, that's when you're most likely to make a mistake. When you react immediately, you don't give yourself the opportunity to think, to view the problem clearly. This leads to making wrong decisions, such as a thoughtless remark or a hasty action that you'll regret later. On the other hand, if you choose to stay calm and pause, you will see that the situation becomes much easier. When you take a moment to observe, you may realize that the problem is not as big as you thought. You may see important details that you had missed before. You can think of solutions that you didn't consider when reacting hastily. Calmness will help you master the situation. It's not the difficult situation that makes you lose control, but you are the one who decides whether to lose control or not. You can choose to face the challenge with clarity and strategy, or you can let your emotions dictate your actions. This choice is entirely in your hands. And when you realize that you can decide how you react, you will feel stronger than ever. You will realize that difficult situations are not something to fear, but opportunities to showcase your ability to control your emotions and make sound decisions. This doesn't mean you have to become a cold, emotionless person. You will still feel pressure, still feel stress in difficult situations. What's important is that you understand emotions are just a part of the decision-making process. Emotions can help you understand the problem, but you shouldn't let them dominate the entire process of solving the problem. You may feel anxious, but you don't need to let that anxiety decide your action. You may feel angry, but you don't need to let that anger lead every decision. The key is recognizing that emotion and being able to adjust it to respond appropriately. This is where self-awareness and emotional management skills become decisive. You need to recognize your emotions, understand where they come from, and decide whether to let them dictate your actions. If you can master your emotions, you will never let difficult situations make you lose control. Instead of letting emotions lead, you will be the one to control them, and then you will always be on the right path. We all know that in every stressful situation, if we don't stay calm, we can make mistakes. But when we master our emotions and stay calm, we can view everything more clearly. We won't get caught up in negative emotions, but can use them to find solutions, clarify the issue, and make the right decision. Calmness is the ability to control yourself in every situation. It's not something that's already there, it's a skill you can learn and practice. Every time you face difficulty, you can choose to react emotionally, or you can choose to stay calm and find a solution. When you master your emotions, you'll realize that difficult situations can no longer make you lose control. And when you master your emotions, you will master your life. When you understand that you have the power to decide your reactions, you will see that every difficulty is solvable. You will no longer fear difficult situations. You will face them calmly, wisely, and confidently. And that's when you become the one who masters your life, not the one life masters. Calmness is latent power. This is a concept that very few people truly understand, yet it is the key to success in any field. The reality is that one of the most important factors in achieving goals and overcoming challenges is the ability to remain calm in stressful situations. When you are calm, not only can you think more clearly, but you can also act more accurately and effectively. Calmness is not just about maintaining inner silence. It is the ability to control emotions, the ability to face any situation without allowing it to throw you off course. This brings immense power, because when you can maintain your mind during the most difficult moments, you won't be swept into the chaos around you. You will be able to make decisions wisely and strategically instead of reacting impulsively. There's a truth that not everyone realizes. True strength does not come from displaying frustration, anger, or fear. True strength comes from staying calm in moments when everything seems to be collapsing around you. Look at the most successful people in history. These individuals weren't emotionless. They knew how to control their emotions, maintaining clarity and decisiveness even when facing the greatest adversities. The latent power in calmness is the ability to act without being swayed by emotions. When you let your emotions take control, you make poor decisions, act hastily, and may regret it later. But when you maintain calmness, you can objectively assess the problem, offer effective solutions, and resolve the situation skillfully. Calmness prevents you from losing your way in chaotic moments. Calmness is not the absence of emotion, but the ability to face and adjust emotions intelligently. Emotions are a natural part of life, but not all emotions need to govern your actions. You can feel angry, but that doesn't mean you must let that anger guide every decision. You can feel anxious, but that anxiety doesn't need to rob you of your confidence. When you learn how to stay calm, you'll realize that emotions don't dominate your life. Instead, you control your emotions. When you overpower your emotions, calmness is latent power because it allows you to master the situation instead of being mastered by the situation. In every decision, in every action, calmness helps you see the problem from multiple angles and make the most accurate decision. When you're not swayed by emotions, you'll find that you can resolve any issue, from challenges at work to situations in personal life. Calmness is not something you can instantly acquire. It's a skill that needs continuous practice. When you face stressful situations, instead of reacting immediately, allow yourself a moment to pause, breathe, and think. When you create this pause, you will find that you can see the problem more clearly. You won't be caught up in the chaos around you, but instead, you'll be the one controlling your emotions. One reason calmness becomes latent power is that it helps you maintain focus. When you're not distracted by emotions, you can keep your focus on your goals and act more effectively. Calmness helps you make strategic decisions rather than acting on impulse. This is especially important in the workplace, where the right decisions can affect the progress of a project or even the survival of a company. Calmness isn't only beneficial at work, it also brings strength in personal relationships. In stressful situations, we can easily let emotions control us and say or do things we will later regret. But when you remain calm, you will find that you can communicate more clearly and effectively. You not only control the conversation, but also the relationships in your life. Calmness helps you understand that things don't always go as planned. Difficulties, challenges, and failures are part of life. However, instead of letting them defeat you, you can use them as opportunities to learn and grow. When you're calm, you won't see challenges as insurmountable. On the contrary, you'll see them as opportunities to become stronger, smarter, and more insightful. To truly realize the power of calmness, you must learn to view difficult situations positively. Instead of worrying about things you cannot change, focus on what you can control. That is, your choice. You can choose to respond to difficult situations calmly and effectively, rather than letting them make you lose direction. When you begin to choose calmness, you'll realize that true power lies in mastering your emotions and acting intentionally. Calmness is latent power that we all can harness. It's not something you have to wait for or hope to receive. Calmness is a skill you can practice every day, each time you face a challenge. When you master calmness, you will master your life, and that is true strength. You must train calmness in the midst of chaos. This is something most people don't realize. The feeling of calmness is not something you can find in peaceful moments when everything around you is stable. In fact, true calmness can only be trained during chaotic times, when everything seems to be falling apart around you. When you learn how to stay calm in stressful situations, not only will you learn how to face challenges, but you will also learn how to maintain control and make sound decisions in the most difficult situations. This may sound paradoxical, but the reality is that calmness is not something you seek when everything is stable. You must find a way to train calmness in times of chaos. It's in these moments that you will learn how to control your emotions and act with purpose instead of letting external factors make you lose your calm. In life, what you cannot control are the external factors, the unforeseen events. But what you can control is how you react to them. Imagine you're facing a stressful situation, perhaps an important meeting, a difficult conversation, or even a life-changing decision at work. All the factors around you can make you feel anxious, angry, or even disappointed. In these moments, instead of letting emotions dictate your actions, you need to pause for a moment, breathe, and observe. This doesn't mean you're being cold or emotionless, but that you're aware of your emotions and decide how to respond smartly and effectively. So, why do you need to train calmness in chaos? Because it's in these stressful moments, when emotions are running high, that you have the opportunity to truly train yourself. When everything around you is crumbling, that's when you need the ability to pause and view everything from a different angle. When you stay calm in chaotic moments, not only will you face the situation intelligently, but you'll also build a strong inner strength. This is a continuous learning process, not a one-time event. True calmness comes from facing challenges without being swept away by emotions. When you're not controlled by your emotions, you can objectively assess the problem and make sound decisions. This doesn't mean you won't feel anxious or angry. Emotions are a natural part of being human, and we can't completely eliminate them. However, when you train yourself to stay calm, you'll realize that you can control how you react, and that's the most important thing. One reason why calmness becomes such an important skill is that it helps you maintain control even in difficult situations. Think of a successful person in their career, life, or any field. These people are not emotionless. They too will feel anxious, angry, or disappointed, but they've trained themselves not to let those emotions dictate their actions. They know how to recognize their emotions, understand that emotions are a part of the decision-making process, but they don't let emotions become the deciding factor in their actions. Calmness is not an innate ability. It's a skill you can learn and cultivate over time. If you only stay calm when everything is going smoothly, you'll never truly control your emotions. You won't be able to stay calm when facing challenges, when everything gets complicated. But if you learn to stay calm in chaotic moments, you'll become the one who masters your life instead of letting life control you. The simplest technique to train calmness is to stop for a moment before acting. When you face a stressful situation, instead of reacting immediately, take a moment to breathe and think. In that moment, not only will you help your mind calm down, but you'll also allow yourself to view the problem more clearly. You won't react hastily, but instead, you'll act purposefully and intelligently. Calmness in that moment will help you make the right decision instead of just acting on emotion. This can be applied not just at work, but also in daily life. You will encounter difficult situations, challenges in relationships, and important decisions. In these moments, calmness will become your strength. It will help you not to be swept away by the chaos around you, but instead, you will become the one who controls the situation, decides how to respond, and makes the right decision. Calmness is not easy, but it's also not something that's unattainable. You just need to learn how to stop, think, and act with purpose. When you do this, you'll realize that calmness is not just about controlling emotions, but about controlling your life. Calmness is the true power you can cultivate right in difficult situations. Remember, you can train yourself in the midst of chaos, and when you do that, you will find that life becomes easier, and you will face every challenge without being swept away by emotions. A single breath can change everything. It may sound simple, but you'll be amazed at the power it brings. In moments of stress, when everything seems out of control, the right breath at the right time might be exactly what you need. When life pushes you into unavoidable situations, instead of worrying, fearing, or reacting immediately, all you need is a deep, slow, and conscious breath. You'll feel the change instantly. Calmness is not innate, it's a skill you can practice. One of the simplest, yet most effective ways to train yourself to maintain calmness is through breath. You may not immediately realize the power of breath, but if you practice regularly, you'll feel a noticeable difference. In fact, breath can help you return to a balanced state, relieve stress and anxiety, restore energy, and regain focus. When you face a stressful situation, such as an important meeting, a difficult conversation, or a major life decision, everything around you may seem blurry. Feelings of anxiety, stress, even panic may overwhelm you, and in these moments, it's easy to make hasty decisions, act on emotions, and regret it later. But if you take a moment and breathe deeply, you'll notice an immediate change. You'll not only feel more comfortable, but also able to view the situation more clearly. Calmness, focus, and emotional control all come from mastering your breath. A slow, deep breath is the easiest way to reconnect with your body and mind. When you breathe deeply, you're sending a signal to your brain that everything is okay. You're creating space to pause and view everything objectively. In a world filled with stress and anxiety, mastering your breath is the way you avoid being swept up in the emotional whirlpool and external situations. Breath can be a powerful tool if you know how to use it, but to do that, you must practice. Some people may think that breath is something natural and doesn't need much thought. The truth is, we often don't realize how we are breathing. When emotions rise, your breath becomes shallow and fast. But when you learn to control your breath, you'll realize you can change your mental and emotional state with just a few deep, conscious breaths. This not only has an immediate effect. When you practice breathing properly every day, you're training your body and mind to face life's stresses more resiliently. You're building a solid foundation to maintain calmness in any situation. Once you've built this foundation, a deep breath won't just help you relax, but it will also help you stay calm during the most challenging moments. In fact, a breath can change not only your mental state, but also how you act. When you breathe deeply, you're not only calming your body, but also stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, helping your body relax and reduce stress. This will help you think more clearly, act more confidently, and make better decisions. Instead of reacting hastily, you can act with purpose, clarity, and greater effectiveness. One reason breath becomes a powerful tool in maintaining calmness is that it can change your mental state in an instant. Imagine you're in a tense meeting, in a difficult situation, and everyone is talking loudly, arguing. Instead of letting your emotions get caught up in the debate, all you need to do is stop for a moment. Take a deep, slow breath. You will feel the change in your body. Your heart rate will slow down, your thoughts will become clearer, and you'll feel calm again. From there, you'll be able to think more clearly, make wiser decisions, and solve the situation more effectively. Not only at work, but mastering breath can also help you improve personal life and relationships. In tense situations with others, a deep breath can help you control your emotions, avoid negative reactions, and communicate more calmly. When you control your breath, you not only control your emotions, but also how you interact with others. You won't easily be swept into their stress, but instead, you'll maintain your calmness and give measured, intentional responses. Calmness is not about not having emotions. Calmness is the ability to face emotions without letting them control your actions. Breath is a powerful tool that helps you do that. A deep breath allows you to temporarily step away from a stressful situation, creating space for you to think and make decisions. When you master your breath, you master your emotions, and from there, you master your life. To train yourself to maintain calmness in every situation, you don't need to do anything complicated. All you need is to spend a few minutes every day practicing deep breathing. Start with small moments in daily life, such as when you wake up, before you go to sleep, or when you face a stressful situation. Every time you stop and breathe deeply, you are training yourself to maintain calmness and control emotions in difficult situations. So never underestimate the power of a breath. A single breath can change everything. It can change how you view life, change how you act, and change how you experience the world around you. And when you learn to master your breath, you won't just learn how to maintain calmness, but also how to control yourself in any circumstance. Calmness is the result of inner discipline. There is no shortcut to calmness, nor is there a magic trick to achieving emotional control overnight. The only thing that can help you build calmness, even in the most stressful situations, is inner discipline. This discipline is not just about restraining emotions, but also about the ability to control your actions and reactions in any situation. True calmness is not an innate trait. It is a skill that can be cultivated over time with persistent effort and a well-thought-out plan. We live in a world full of distractions, stress, and pressure. Every day, countless things push you into states of agitation, anxiety, or confusion. Unforeseen events, tense conversations, and major decisions can all cause you to lose direction if you don't have the ability to maintain calm. And it is inner discipline that helps you stand firm in the face of every challenge. Inner discipline is not something easily acquired, but if you persist in training, you will find that calmness is no longer something difficult to grasp. Inner discipline is the ability to maintain composure when everything around you seems out of control. It's the ability not to be swept away by emotions or circumstances, but instead to stay calm and control your emotions. When you learn to maintain calmness in stressful situations, you not only control your emotions, but also act more effectively, decisively, and wisely. It's not what happens around you that determines your calmness. It's how you react and control your emotions in those situations. Inner discipline is about creating purposeful habits and actions. One of the best ways to cultivate this discipline is to learn how to pause and breathe before reacting in difficult situations. It's not just a simple breath, but a moment of stillness to observe the situation and your emotions before taking any action. When you do this, you won't be swept into chaos, and instead, you will think clearly and make better decisions. Inner discipline is not simply about restraining negative emotions. It's about maintaining stability in every situation. You can't control everything that happens around you, but you can fully control how you respond to them. This is the foundation of calmness. When you have inner discipline, you will realize that calmness is not difficult. It's just the result of you training yourself to maintain self-control in any situation. One of the most important factors of inner discipline is understanding that calmness is not a natural state. You won't naturally become calm in stressful situations if you don't practice and develop this skill. Calmness is a habit, a skill that can be built and strengthened over time. When you learn to maintain calmness, you will realize that each time you face difficulty, you have the opportunity to train yourself, improving your emotional control and becoming more clear-headed in your actions. Inner discipline also helps you master your time and energy. In stressful moments, we can easily get caught up in emotions and react reflexively. But if you have inner discipline, you will not only react unconsciously, but also actively control your thoughts and actions. You won't just act based on emotions, but according to your core principles and values. This discipline helps you avoid negativity, prevents you from getting caught up in unnecessary emotions, and keeps you focused on what really matters. Look at the most successful people in life, from leaders to top entrepreneurs. They are not people who never experience failure or stress, but the difference is they have the ability to remain calm in difficult moments. They have the inner discipline not to be swept away by their emotions, but instead they control their emotions to make the best decisions in those circumstances. It is this calmness that helps them overcome challenges, continue moving forward, and achieve successes that few could imagine. Inner discipline can also help you maintain healthier, more effective relationships. In any relationship, whether professional or personal, there are stressful moments when you may easily lose your calm and react negatively. However, when you have inner discipline, you will learn not to let those moments cause you to lose your respect or calm. You won't let anger, anxiety, or frustration influence your actions. Instead, you'll act thoughtfully and responsibly. Inner discipline is not easy, but it is one of the most important skills you can develop. It requires persistence and commitment to learning and practicing every day. When you can maintain calmness in any situation, you will not only master your emotions, but also master your life. Calmness is true strength, and inner discipline is the key to achieving it. There is nothing more important than developing inner discipline to maintain calmness in life. When you train yourself to be calm, you not only help yourself overcome difficulties, but you also help those around you feel secure and supported. You will become someone who can make the right decisions, act with purpose, and maintain calmness in every situation, thus leading yourself and others to true success. Practicing silence is a victory. In this world where everyone wants to voice their thoughts, express opinions, and argue to prove their point, silence can be an undeniably powerful tool. It is not about giving up or being weak. Rather, it is a manifestation of control and inner discipline. Sometimes, silence is the wisest choice you can make, because it not only helps you maintain calmness, but also allows you to think more deeply and avoid unnecessary mistakes. In a world where people seem to always need words to respond, staying silent can be understood as an act of victory. When you choose silence over engaging in a tense conversation or responding hastily, you affirm that you are the one who controls yourself. This silence is not a lack of words, but a conscious decision. It allows you to think more thoroughly, view the situation objectively, and, if necessary, provide more thoughtful responses. One reason silence becomes a victory is that it helps you avoid situations that could lead to overreaction. A hasty word can ruin a relationship, destroy an opportunity, or even hurt others. When you choose silence, you create space to think, to view the issue more clearly and coherently. Silence allows you to avoid getting caught up in psychological games or emotional reactions. You are no longer a victim of emotions. You are the one who controls them. Remember, not every situation requires a response. Often, what you say is not as important as how you say it, or sometimes, you may not need to say anything at all. Practicing silence is the ability to know when to speak and when to remain silent. This is a core element in building maturity and inner discipline. When you learn to remain silent in tense situations, you not only protect your own calmness, but also create space for others to think, allowing them to hear and understand more deeply. Silence in tense situations also helps you avoid being swept into pointless arguments. Life will always present moments when you feel the urge to counter someone or defend your opinion, but you must understand that you don't always need to win an argument. In such moments, silence is not merely avoidance, but a smart strategy. It allows you to preserve mental strength, stay firm in your viewpoint, and continue showing respect for others. When you remain silent in a debate, you demonstrate that you do not need to prove your worth through words. You have moved past the need to show off, and you know that your true value is not in what you say, but in how you act. This does not mean you should not have a viewpoint or express yourself, but that you need to know when silence holds more value than words. Practicing silence helps you avoid ruining important things because of impatience or an emotional outburst. When you remain silent, you not only protect yourself, but also strengthen your relationship with others. A thoughtless word can hurt someone, but silence can provide space for things to calm down and allow others to view the issue more calmly. Silence is not avoiding responsibility. It is taking initiative to maintain harmony and respect. One of the important elements that silence brings is observation. When you say nothing, you can pay more attention to what is happening around you. You can view the issue from different angles and then make wiser decisions. Silence is an opportunity to listen, learn, and think before acting. It helps you avoid reacting hastily and allows you to focus on important factors and necessary information to make the right decision. In life, you will not be able to control everything around you. The things you cannot control will happen, but you can fully control how you respond to them. And silence is one of the most powerful tools to help you do that. It not only helps you avoid negative emotions, but also helps you maintain calmness in the harshest situations. When you learn to stay silent at the right moment, you are not only controlling your emotions, but also controlling the situation and those around you. Silence is a manifestation of inner strength. When you remain silent in a tense situation, you show that you are not affected by external factors, that you are not easily swayed by emotions or the words of others. Silence shows that you can stand firm, that you don't need to prove yourself through words, but can demonstrate strength through your actions and your perspective. This is a way to build respect from others, as they will see in you someone who is resolute and strong. Finally, practicing silence helps you create space to recharge and maintain calmness. In this world, where information and words are constantly being thrown around, silence is an opportunity to pause, reflect, and recharge your strength. You don't need to voice every thought in your head, and you don't have to participate in every debate. Sometimes, the greatest victory in a tense situation is not winning the confrontation, but knowing when to remain silent, when to stay calm, and when to act purposely. Therefore, remember that silence is a victory. When you remain silent, you not only demonstrate self-control, but also help yourself and those around you have space to think, learn, and grow. Practice silence as a tool to help you maintain calmness, focus, and make wise decisions in every situation. Anger situations are an opportunity to train self-control. This is a simple yet profound truth that many people overlook or fail to realize. Every time you feel angry, it is not a sign of weakness or a loss of emotional control, but rather an opportunity for you to practice mastering your emotions, to challenge yourself, and to test your inner strength. When you face anger, you are at an important crossroads. You can react instinctively, allowing emotions to overpower your reasoning, or you can use this situation to develop patience, discipline, and self-control. Anger is not a bad thing. On the contrary, it is a natural part of human instincts. We all experience moments of anger when something unfair happens, when we feel insulted or hurt. But the important thing is how we handle that anger. In fact, every outburst of anger carries an opportunity for growth. When you face anger, you are not only fighting the emotion itself, but also battling against your own habits of automatic responses that have deeply ingrained themselves in your mind. When anger rises, you will feel the tension, your heart rate speeding up and your breath becoming shallow. These are physiological signs your body creates when you are in a state of stress. But instead of letting this emotion dictate your actions, you can turn those responses into an opportunity to train self-control. Ask yourself, does this feeling need to shape my actions? Do I really need to react immediately? The answer, if you can stay calm, will be no. This doesn't mean you have to suppress your anger. You can still feel angry, but control lies in not letting it define your actions. Anger is not a reason to do something you will regret later. In fact, every time you stay calm in an angry situation, you are training your mind to become stronger, not to be pulled into the emotional wave, but instead to respond purposefully and intelligently. At this point, you must understand that anger is not the enemy. It is a tool, a signal. The feeling of anger is your body's way of warning you about something wrong, an injustice or a problem that needs to be addressed. Anger gives you the motivation to change, to act, but it's the control you can apply to that emotion that will determine where you go. If you act immediately, swept away by emotions and impulsive reactions, you will easily hurt yourself and others. But if you can restrain yourself and respond in a controlled way, you will use anger as a driving force for growth and change. The theory of controlling anger is really quite simple. It's not whether you feel angry or not, but how you respond to it. Remember that successful people are not those who never feel angry, but those who know how to master their anger. In every situation, they don't let an emotional outburst control their actions. Instead, they use it as a signal to guide their actions positively and purposefully. Think about the people you admire, those who you consider great, successful, and calm. They are not people who never get angry. On the contrary, they may have faced challenging and stressful situations, but they know how to control their emotions and respond wisely and rationally. They don't react immediately when anger rises. Instead, they pause for a moment, give themselves time to think, and then make the best response. And it is this ability that has helped them succeed. Now, the question is, how can you train yourself in angry situations? First, you must identify the signs of anger. When you feel angry, your body will signal you through a fast heartbeat, heavy breathing, or even physical tension. This is when you need to stop and control your breath. A deep breath can help you calm the anger, reduce the tension, and regain focus. When you can master your breath, you can also master your emotions. The next step is to ask yourself, is my immediate reaction really necessary? Can I choose a different way to respond to handle the situation more wisely? This question helps you not only slow down your emotional response, but also start thinking about the best way to act. Perhaps silence is the best way to respond in that moment. Or perhaps you need to come up with a rational solution to address the issue, rather than letting anger take over. Another important thing is that you need to learn to recognize your emotions without letting them overpower your reasoning. Every emotion has value, but the control lies in not letting that emotion dictate your actions. Remember that every angry situation offers an opportunity for you to grow. It's an opportunity to master yourself, to change your way of reacting, and to learn from your emotions. Finally, when you can consciously control your anger, you will notice that calmness becomes an essential part of your life. When you face challenges, you will no longer feel swept away by emotions, but you will act from a calm, clear-headed position. That is when you truly master your life and anger no longer controls you. On the contrary, you will control it. And as a result, you will become stronger, more resilient, and more confident in every decision you make. Entering a life of self-control is not easy. It is a long journey that requires perseverance, self-awareness, and consistent effort to overcome challenges. But if you choose to follow this path, you will discover a tremendous power, not in controlling the outside world, but within yourself. When you have self-control, you will be able to consciously control your emotions, thoughts, and actions, rather than being swept into automatic reactions. And when you master yourself, you will no longer feel passive in life. Self-control is not about avoiding emotions or imposing repression. It doesn't mean you have to stop feeling, or that you shouldn't be angry, sad, or fearful. In fact, you will still experience those emotions. What's different is that you won't let them dictate your actions. You won't react hastily, you won't act on emotion, but instead you will know how to choose your response. You will master your emotions instead of letting them master you. This process begins with clear awareness of what's happening inside you. You need to understand that your emotions and thoughts are not you. They are just temporary reactions to external events or circumstances. When you realize that you are not your emotions, you can create a space to think before acting. This is where self-control begins. There is no immediate reaction, no hasty decisions, but self-command in every thought, every action. When you step into life with self-control, you no longer live according to what emotions dictate, but instead you live according to what you choose. This means you will no longer allow anything beyond your control to overwhelm you. Situations, no matter how difficult, will not make you lose your calm. You won't feel helpless when facing problems because you know you can change your approach and way of acting. The journey into a life with self-control begins with small decisions. These decisions could be choosing to stay silent in an argument instead of responding immediately, or taking a deep breath to regain calm before reacting in a stressful situation. Each of these decisions seems small, but over time they create a significant shift in how you perceive the world and how you act in it. When you decide to control your emotions, you're not just changing how you face situations, you are changing how you live. So why self-control? Why this instead of some other kind of control? Because self-control is not about trying to control others or trying to control events beyond your reach. What you control is yourself, and that is the true source of strength. When you control yourself, you can maintain calm even in a storm, not being swept up by negative emotions or uncontrolled reactions. You can face challenges without feeling defeated, and you can approach problems more objectively and effectively. When you practice self-control, you'll realize something important. This control is not rigidity, but freedom. Freedom is not about doing whatever you want without barriers, but the ability to choose your actions in any situation. You don't live according to automatic reactions that society or emotions dictate, but you can choose the response that suits you best and the situation. One of the key factors in self-control is self-awareness. You need to understand yourself. Know your weaknesses and strengths, and understand your emotions and thoughts. When you are aware of these, you will easily recognize when your emotions start to influence your actions and when you need to intervene to maintain control. When you practice self-control, you not only learn to manage your emotions, but also how to respond calmly, decisively, and rationally. You won't be swept away by emotional waves, but instead, you will create smart decisions in every moment. This not only helps you in work, relationships, but also in your personal life. You will no longer be led by emotions, but you will be the one leading yourself. When you control yourself, you can also control the negative habits in your life. You will realize that many of your actions in the past were reflexive, not purposeful. For example, when you feel stressed, you may naturally eat snacks, watch TV, or do something to relieve your emotions. But when you control your emotions, you will realize that these actions are just ways to avoid confronting the issue. Instead, you will find ways to solve problems more directly and consciously. When you step into life with self-control, you will no longer feel swept into a fast-paced, stressful life, but you will live with clarity and purpose. You will know when to act, when to stop, and when to think further. Every decision you make will be a conscious choice, rather than a mindless reaction. This is not an easy process, but it is one that can change your life. Entering a life of self-control is the first step toward mastering yourself and your life. You don't need to wait for circumstances to improve or for others to change. You just need to change how you face this world and master yourself. So if you want to step into a life with self-control, you must start with yourself. Start with small decisions, with daily moments. Choose to act consciously, not letting emotions control you, and from there, you will see your life change. When you have self-control, you will not only control your life, but also lead your life with strength and resilience.